Alien, Xenomorph and Venom have always seemed like close relatives, and for a very good reason. But what you may not know is that they have another brother, a third cousin from Stephen Norrington's side. What was its name, you ask? Oh, it is very original. The creature was born and raised in London sewers and was quite fashionable while terrorizing the city in style. It wore a motorcycle helmet visor. Yeah, no kidding. So, the question we will try to answer today is, who made who and who copied whose design? When Alien came out in 1979, it was impossible for any sci-fi film creature artist to ignore the fact that H.R. Giger had redefined monster design. There was nothing remotely close to that awesomeness of the Alien design. The fake, rubbish, human-like parodies of creatures from prior decades were sent to the history archives. The Alien became the gold standard of extraterrestrial creature design. So is it really that big of a surprise that copies of Alien design began to pop up? Yes and no. Keep in mind, this is Ridley Scott we are talking about, the director of the original Alien movie, along with 20th Century Fox Brandywine Productions. Their lawyers were on the lookout for potential duplicates and knockoffs. 20th Century Fox and Ridley Scott were relentless in protecting the design of Xenomorph. The studio held copyright over the creature design and actively monitored any kind of imitations. Todd McFarlane had been doodling designs for the next big Spider-Man villain for some time, but nothing groundbreaking was coming out of the pencil, just the same old boring humanoids. The black Spider-Man costume was decent, but not quite enough. Something was missing. It had to be more sinister. David Michelin, the writer, had already outlined the concept of large, muscular figure with a predatory smile, but it still needed an over-the-top detail to finalize the look. Something to make Spider-Man truly tremble. Todd McFarlane couldn't help but think about the Xenomorph's long, spiky teeth, insane-looking tongue, slick, reflective skin, and that jaw, the way it slowly revealed the terror of its mouth. It was a hypnotizing experience, impossible to forget and hard to ignore. Sometimes, the best way to create is to get inspired by perfection. Since Todd didn't really like the black Spider-Man costume being associated with Peter Parker, it was time to give it to somebody else. And what if? Forget about it just being a costume. What if it's also biological? But unlike the Xenomorph, which is biomechanical, this would be more of an organic substance. Heck yeah, this is original enough to be shielded from the wrath of Ridley Scott and 20th Century Fox. Now let's add all those cool elements: long, sharp teeth, a ridiculously long Gene Simmons-like tongue, glossy black skin, and hello Venom! In 1988, 9 years after the Alien Xenomorph, a new villain was introduced to the world of comics and sci-fi. Todd McFarlane's design of Venom emphasized exaggerated muscularity, sharp teeth, and symbiotic liquid form. Those features became the bread and butter of comic books' visual style and helped differentiate Venom as a character, rather than a direct replication of the Xenomorph's unique traits. There were no legal actions, disputes, or challenges from Ridley Scott or 20th Century Fox regarding the design of Venom. Even though the design drew inspiration from various sources, it ultimately evolved into its own iconic look. Still, if you look closely, while McFarlane's design was original in many ways, Venom shares some visual cues from Giger's Alien, particularly in how the symbiote's organic fluid form creates a sense of a grotesque alienness. The slim, almost insect-like biomechanical feature of the character can be directly traced to the influence of Giger's work. In fact, the idea of living otherworldly symbiote with a mouth that seems to extend beyond human proportions resembled the kind of design Giger made famous in Alien. Venom design is not a direct copy of Giger's work, but certainly bears elements of influence from the horror and sci-fi genres popular at the time. McFarlane's unique take on Venom combined traditional superhero athletics with darker, more grotesque elements, resulting in a character that made an original and lasting impact on comic book culture. McFarlane pondered what might happen if Superman were impregnated by the egg-layer creature from Alien. What would the result of such tragedy look like? Well, that's how we got Venom. And perhaps his mommy Superman might also survive the birth. Maybe. Would he? So what about that lesser-known cousin we mentioned at the beginning? What on earth was that creature? Why was it given such a generic name, and where did it come from? Whose twisted imagination brought this creature to life on the big screen? And seriously, why on earth was it wearing a visor? The creature design in the 1992 horror film Split Second was supervised by Stephen Norrington, who later became known for directing Blade. The creature's appearance is a blend of influences from Venom and Xenomorph from Alien, and even the Predator to a lesser degree. The movie had a rather small budget to work with, and after paying off salaries to the starring actors, there was little left for the creature design. This is one of the reasons it stayed hidden until the very end, with only a couple of quick flash appearances to tease the audience, nothing more. No money for the effects and CGI work. So, Norrington, known for his work on Aliens and the Abyss, had to use the oldest trick in the book, just Frankenstein something from the prior projects. Reuse what worked in the past and slap just a little bit of a lipstick on top. Fast, quick, good enough for the B-horror movie. Just gotta make sure nobody from Fox Studio would notice the leftovers from the Alien Xenomorph. I'll have to fly under the radar just long enough not to get busted, and if the knockoffs is discovered after the movie release, oh well, that's studio and lawyer's problem. I'm done with the job and off to the next project. The creature in Split Second is described as more humanoid take on Giger's Alien, emphasizing a terrifying and predatory aesthetic. Similarities between the design were driven by shared stylistic choice popular in sci-fi horror at the time. The setting's waterlogged, dystopian London added another layer of complexity to the design, making the creature's movement and interaction with its environment another key consideration during production. It was also important for a probable argument with any legal claims to tie the creature to a completely different environment and survival mechanism. So if not for the looks, its natural habitat and adaptations would be the main differentiating factor in the potential defense. Why did it have such generic name? The creature in Split Second was referred to simply as the Killer, due to the minimalistic storytelling approach that emphasized the creature's function rather than its origin or identity. This vagueness works very well with film's atmospheric, horror-driven tone. By keeping the creature nameless, it remains mysterious and terrifying, leaving much of its nature to the audience imagination. Additionally, the film's limited budget and focus on Rutger Hauer's character meant that the narrative centered more on the psychological toll that creature inflicted rather than its detailed backstory. Calling it the Killer highlighted its role as a relentless and almost supernatural predator, echoing the fear and chaos it brought without diving too much into unnecessary explanation. Almost supernatural, because it was decided not to follow the path and stick to mutation cause, some sort of rat DNA mutation with human. It was intelligent after all, with the ability to establish a deep psychological connection with its prey. The mechanism was sort of weird. The creature had to literally leave claw marks on the victim body to keep tabs on its presence, hearing the heartbeat. This kind of ambiguity is not uncommon in sci-fi horror films, as it allows the creature to act more as a symbol of fear or the unknown rather than just a monster with a clear identity. It also attempted to prevent the audience from drawing too close of a comparison with other iconic monsters like Alien or Venom, which had extensively fleshed out mythologies. Why was the Killer wearing a visor? Designers couldn't decide on its eyes, appearance, or even whether to have them at all. But that would be a dead-on Xenomorph rubber-stamped copy. So, with no time left and no clear vision on what to do with the eyes, the solution was to simply put a visor over them and let fans explain this ridiculous look. And with Predator being so popular back then, the visor would also serve as some sort of helmet, adding technological feature to the design. Alright, I totally made this one up. To this day, there has been no explanation as to why the visor made it to the final concept or what its purpose was besides adding yet another reflective element to its head. While both designs share some visual similarities, such as dark and sinister aesthetics, Venom's comic book debut and subsequent popularity predate Split Second by 4 years. The resemblance likely stems from the shared creativity inspiration from good old Alien rather than the direct influence from Venom. But one cannot deny the fact that both McFarlane and Norrington had Xenomorph miniature copy on their desks. Once again, there were no known legal dispute between the design of Venom and the Killer, although both creatures were definitely influenced by Giger's work. Giger's biomechanical aesthetics left a lasting impact on many subsequent monsters designs in horror films. Split-second movie had a rather poor box office performance. It grossed approximately $5.4 million in the domestic market against a production budget of around $7 million. There was no chance for any sequels or prequels. It was a big loss for the studio. While the film did not do well initially in the theaters, its cult following grew after it was released on home video, long live VHS. It was a hot commodity and the first pick of the blockbuster shelves. Remember that video store? Friday night stop by before the dinner movie? Despite the underperformance, Split Second has since become a notable entry in 90s sci-fi action. It's a cool movie to watch for any sci-fi fan, and arguably, definitely, better than most modern-day horror science fiction wannabes. Thank you for spending time with me, and I will see you soon.